Business and your health. Enjoy live interviews and solo sessions with experts in business and health, featuring your host, Dr. Alex Rosa. Let's get into today's episode. Welcome to In Your Business with Dr. Alex, where we get all up in your business and your health. Enjoy live interviews and solo sessions with experts in business and health, featuring your host, Dr. Alex Rosa. Let's get into today's episode.
Hey, familia. Welcome to In Your Business with Dr. Alex, where we get all up in your business and your health. And I have an amazing guest today, Miss Robin Wilson. Today, we're going to talk about invisible disabilities and entrepreneurship. And so if you're somebody who has personally dealt with dyslexia or knows somebody who has, this is going to be an especially important episode because Miss Robin Wilson is very inspirational and she's also an educator. I'm an educator. So we're going to talk about education, entrepreneurship. We're going to talk about all the things today. It's going to be a jam-packed. We're going to do this in about 20 minutes, guys, but we're going to get it all in there and definitely be part of the conversation. Don't sit on the sideline. You have two great resources right here between her and I. So definitely reach out, ask questions. Let us know where in this whole wide world that you are tuning in from. That's what's amazing about video. We'd love to give you a shout out and say hello to you. So without further ado, I'm going to bring my gorgeous, wonderful, talented, amazing, smart, fabulous guest up. I try to pack all them words in there, Miss Robin. I'm going to bring you up on stage.
Hi, Dr. Alex. How are you doing today?
Oh, I'm doing so good. I love seeing your beautiful smiling face. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. Yes.
You are so welcome. So tell this amazing audience, whether they're watching live or hashtag replay, let us know about you and who you are.
Sure. My name again is Robin Wilson. I am a wife. I'm a certified teacher, published children's author, and I'm also a dyslexic literacy leader. I have a background in literacy education. My bachelor's degree is actually in reading with a minor in language arts from the University of Michigan, Dearborn. Go Blue. And I am excited to have this conversation with you today because I get to talk about what I'm passionate about, which is literacy and helping young people and their families to thrive.
Nice. Yeah, so both you and I are educators and both you and I happen to be entrepreneurs as well. So how did you end up going from educator to entrepreneur or branching out into doing your own thing? Because I know there's a lot of other educators out there that might be watching this, and this is kind of one of the whole purposes of my show is to expose people to what is possible for them and other avenues for careers that they can have. And so how did you end up blending and merging these things together?
So before I actually entered the classroom, I started out working around literacy in the community. So when I was still a college student, when I was younger in my early 20s, I started what's called the Josie Oda Morris Literacy Project, which is named in honor of my late grandmother, who was also an educator. I started the nonprofit organization to serve my community. I'm originally from Inkster, Michigan, proud to be from Inkster, Michigan. There's a lot of great history there. But I was approached by someone in my church about becoming a tutor, reading tutor, because they knew that I had overcome reading challenges in my youth. And they knew that there were other individuals within my church who needed support. Well, I volunteered as a tutor, and then the program did not fully come to fruition. So meaning it did not last. It wasn't sustainable. However, I knew that I still really wanted to be involved in that work. So I started doing my research, and what I was shocked to find was that there actually was a high illiteracy rate in my community. And so as I was looking for different resources to combat illiteracy within my community, there were surrounding resources. However, they were not located specifically within my community. So that was a challenge because from a transportation standpoint, some people don't have adequate transportation. So I started to look at different resources, and because I was already a college student at the time, I found a fellowship. It was a social justice fellowship, and it's still in existence. It's called Young People For, and it's a program through the People for the American People of United Way, and they provided fellowships to college students who were involved in some type of social justice work. So I was one of 200 college students who were selected nationwide. They flew us into Washington, D.C. to receive training on everything from power dynamics to advocating for the social justice causes that we were passionate about. And that's really how I got started. I started in the community. I started working on literacy matters in my community. And then I later went to the University of Michigan, Dearborn, where I earned my bachelor's degree in elementary education. And then I entered the classroom for a short time. But then I transitioned last year after I came back from doing a Fulbright Hayes Fellowship in Brazil, and I had an opportunity to design curriculum for my district, for my school. But I ultimately transitioned out of the classroom because of health reasons. I really knew that I needed to focus on my health, but I still really wanted to stay engaged in the educational community. So I do that now through my company, Robin Wilson Educational Consulting, where I specialize in developing literacy curriculum and programs for nonprofit organizations. And I'm getting ready to do some work in the classroom again because of my work through my company. And so that's how I married the two. That's how I'm still staying engaged in education and marrying the two.
I love that. Yeah. And that you overcame a lot of challenges to do what you really wanted to do, what you felt called to do. And I know you talk about dyslexic literacy here, and I follow you on LinkedIn. So definitely connect with Robin Wilson on LinkedIn to learn about her amazing services and her company. But I see you have their dyslexic literacy leader. I don't think anybody else got that title in their name. So what does that exactly mean? What is that?
So dyslexia is a spectrum learning disorder. And I know that I shared with you earlier that when I was younger, when I was in elementary school and even to some degree in middle school, I struggled with my reading. And I also struggled in math. And in fact, one of the community leaders that I work with today, she's someone who's known me since I was 13 years old. And she is actually one of the reasons why I always say that I was able to overcome some of the earlier learning challenges that I had, because I remember she went after me. I was in a Bible study. We were at a youth Bible study retreat, and I walked out of that Bible study because they asked us to do a written reflection. And I really wanted to complete that written reflection. However, I could not complete it successfully because I was struggling. And I didn't want anyone to know that I was struggling. So I put my Bible down and I walked out of the room. Well, she went after me. And and she asked me what was wrong, and I told her that I was struggling to complete the task that was given to us. So she shared with me at that time that she knew what I was going through because she had gone through the same thing, and she actually shared that when she was younger, she was a struggling reader herself. Now, I knew, Alex, that she was a nurse. She was a certified nurse and teacher even at that time. So it surprised me because I didn't realize that she had gone through those challenges. It really was the first time that I met someone who could identify, and who I could identify with. So she worked with me. She tutored me, she helped me, and by the time I graduated from high school, I graduated with honors. I actually completed a dual enrollment program for medical assisting, and I thought at the time I wanted to go in the medical field, and so I enrolled in a medical dual enrollment program while I was still in high school, and I graduated with honors, and by my first year in college, I tested out at a 12th grade reading level. And so I overcame that challenge because she really helped me not only in reading, but also in mathematics. And what led to my diagnosis with dyslexia, it was the fact that I still struggled with my math, even though I had plenty of tutoring in math. I had tutoring from the time I was in elementary school, and Alex, it was not making sense to me. I could do basic math functions, but I was really struggling with mental math, and it didn't matter how much I saw the math and how much I engaged with it. It wasn't making sense to me. And because I knew that I had overcome my reading challenges, with the proper interventions and support, and I was doing well in other areas of my study, I didn't know what was going on, but I knew that there was something there was more to what I was experiencing than just a lack of effort, because it was definitely not a lack of effort. So I actually self-referred myself to a local clinic. It's a testing clinic at Wayne State University here in Michigan. And I just signed up and I told them that I wanted to be assessed because I knew that there was something going on with my learning around math, but I didn't know what it was. And so they did all of these tests. I mean, it was extensive. I mean, not only did they do interviews with me and do testing, they interviewed my mother so that they could get a holistic view of what my learning looked like even when I was younger. And eventually they came back with a diagnosis of what's known as dyscalculia, which is dyslexia in math. And a lot of people don't know that you can be dyslexic not only in reading, but you can be dyslexic in math. And so for me, what they determined based upon the testing and the interviews that they did with myself and my mom was that I have dyslexia in math. And they also came back with the diagnosis of ADD, which is attention deficit disorder. So it's different from ADHD in the sense that it's not the hyperactive, behaviors that you see in someone who has ADHD, because that's hyperactive. That's the hyperactive form. For me, it's just like with ADD, I can be hyper focused on things that I'm really passionate about, or for me, if it's something that's not of great interest to me, I really have to really work hard to stay focused because I get bored very easily. So once I had the diagnosis, it made sense to me. I mean, I did my research. I will admit that, my mother wasn't really excited because I think that initially when I gave her the news, she felt like most parents probably do, which is why I'm mentioning this, is that, oh, you're labeling my daughter, and I didn't feel that way, Alex. I didn't feel that way at all, because for me, I felt a sense of relief that I had answers, because there's nothing more frustrating than to know that you're intelligent and you're capable and you're able to do all of these other things, and then not really understand why something that you've worked so hard at all your life is still a challenge for you. And so I'm mentioning that so that your listeners understand that when you have a learning difference or a learning disorder like dyslexia or dyslexia in math, which is dyscalculia, it doesn't go away. You can find ways to get better and to improve and work around those learning barriers, but it doesn't go away. And so I just want to make that clear. So for your listeners who might be thinking, well, how do I know if my child or my adult child, is dealing with some type of learning difference? What I would say to them is it persistent? Because as I share with you, I received interventions in terms of tutoring when I was as young as elementary school all the way on through adulthood. But because it was not diagnosed until later in life, I didn't receive the right type of interventions until later. Yeah. And so that's key. I just really want, for those parents who are listening, who may be listening, I really want to encourage them that receiving a diagnosis is not a bad thing. If you think about health challenges, if your child had a health challenge after it persisted for a while, you would take them to the doctors. You wouldn't wait to see if it was going to get better. If it didn't get better, you would take them to the doctors. And you wouldn't worry about, they're going to label my child. You would think, if something is going on with my baby, I'm going to get a diagnosis and then I'm going to get treatment for my baby. And so I'm sharing it from that perspective because I really hope that parents start to look at it that way if they are challenged with the idea that their child might be labeled, because having looked at it from a diagnostic standpoint means that you're able to get treatment, you're able to get intervention much early on. And that's something that we struggle with still within minority communities, especially. We don't always get a diagnosis early on so that we can get early interventions.
Yeah. So many great things that you just brought up there. And I know you're so passionate about children because you are a children's author. And that's a whole nother thing that we got to do another show about, for sure, is getting into that. And I want so many lessons for parents, right, of children with dyslexia, but also I think for adults, and especially adults who are in education, that are entrepreneurs, that I actually have had a few clients who were diagnosed as adults with ADD, ADHD. And it suddenly let this weight off their shoulders because they felt like for so much of their life that something was wrong with them. They could never really pinpoint it until they got this diagnosis. So that's one part. Another part I wanted to touch on was the fact that you did not use this dyslexia label, or whatever you want to call it, diagnosis, as a limitation. You did not let it be a limiting belief for you. And I was wondering if you could maybe wrap up today's show but about maybe talking a little bit about that, or some words of advice, or giving somebody some insight today when they're listening to this about if you feel like a label or a diagnosis, or maybe you are challenged with dyslexia, or I'm just not good with numbers, I'm just not good with this, letting that be a limiting belief for you, and how you found that you can overcome it, and what advice would you give around that, or parting words with that?
Absolutely. My diagnosis was, in my opinion, a saving grace for me, because I was able not only to educate myself on dyslexia and math, which I had worked around literacy, as I shared with you, for several years before, even receiving this diagnosis. And so I did not realize as a literacy leader, even at that time, that it was possible to be dyslexic in math. I thought that dyslexia was just something that was language based. And so once I realized that I was dyslexic in math based on the diagnosis, it allowed me to be a better advocate for myself. I went back to school and I graduated from the University of Michigan with honors. And as I shared with you, just last year, I became a Fulbright Hayes, a U.S. Fulbright Hayes fellow to Brazil. So I've gone on to do very well for myself since receiving the diagnosis. It really truly helped me, because I think that once you understand that a diagnosis of a learning difference it's not a limitation. It's actually an empowerment if you view it, the right way. And I think what I would like to leave with your listeners is that in addition to learning about dyslexia, dyscalculia, and even dysgraphia, which I know we didn't have a chance to talk about, but hopefully we'll have a chance to talk about that some other time, is so powerful to understand what the diagnosis means. Because as a parent, then you can better advocate for your child, but you can also empower them and educate your child so that they are in a good position to advocate for themselves. Because at a certain point, you're not going to be there with them. They're going to be an adult and they're going to have to advocate for themselves independently. And so that's one thing that I would also say is self-efficacy is so important. Just talking about whatever your child's learning difference is with them so that they are not ashamed of it. And really, if you are not ashamed of their learning difference, then they're not going to learn to be ashamed of it either. There are going to be challenges. Kids can be cruel, right? I could tell you the things that happened to me, but I know we don't have time. But kids are going to be cruel, but I think that if your child understands that their learning difference does not mean that they're not intelligent, because that's another thing is having learning difference doesn't mean that there's a lack of intelligence. It just means that you learn differently. And truly, even if you are not someone who's been diagnosed with a learning difference, we all learn differently. We all do. Some of us are audio visual learners. Some of us are better with, tactile learning, but when you have a learning difference, it just means that you need different strategies to help you to be able to achieve the outcomes that you seek to achieve. And it's possible. It absolutely is possible.
It is possible. And you are proof, girl. And that's what I always tell people. There is proof out there for anything that you want. And you have to go out and find it and be open to receiving it. And that's the biggest part with your health, with everything. There's proof out there. You've got to go find it.
That's right.
I love this. Thank you so much. Yes, we definitely have to do a part 2 because I want to get into kids and vision and all of that kind of stuff. And I love that. But thank you again so much for taking the time today. And
You're
I'll put
welcome.
contact info. I'll link everything in the description so people can get a hold of you. But
Absolutely.
Thank you again, Robin. Thank you so
Absolutely.
much.
Bye. Thank you, Alex.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for today's episode. Like I said, if you're watching on the hashtag replay, leave it in the comments. Reach out to Robin. Reach out to I if you have any specific questions. And we will catch you in the next episode of In Your Business with Dr. Alex. And like I always say, for balance life, this is